Hello there folks, this is the Blockbuster Beach Bum. I just want to say there are spoiler alerts to the following movies. Toy Story 3, Lone Ranger, The Artist, and The Incredibles. Those I remember off the top of my head. So if you haven't seen any of those movies and you don't want to be spoiled certain information, watch those movies and come back to this video. I don't like spoil. Even though I don't mind spoilers, other people do. So, thank you. Hello there folks, this is the Blockbuster Beach Bum. Today I've come to talk to you guys about the Motion Picture Association of America. They handle a lot of movie things. Most importantly, they handle the ratings system. Basically, you know, G, PG, PG-13, R, and C-17. Now, let us examine each of these ratings. I have this pamphlet right here I got from my local AMC. For those of you who are parents out there, you could pick one of these up there. That way you can be more informed. And they have a website too if you want to check it out. Rated G. Nothing that would offend parents for viewing by children, general audiences. PG. Parental guidance suggested. Parents urged to give parental guidance. May contain some material parents might not like for their young children. Fair enough. PG-13. Parents strongly caution. Parents urged to be cautious. Some material may be inappropriate for pre-teenagers. Rated R, restricted, contains some adult material. Parents are urged to learn more about the film before taking their young children with them. NC-17, no one under 17 is admitted. No one 17 and under is admitted. Palpably adult children are not admitted. So those are the key ratings that you see on the cover of this pamphlet. But the problem with them is that they're totally subjective. Now, back in the early days of movies, you know, you might see some, motion pictures where there's like nude women or striptease, things like that. And then it wasn't until later that movies had a censorship, and then everything had a strict code. Like, it wasn't like today where you'll have PGG, PG-13R, all that. In America, you'll have approved for audiences, and that was basically it. And then eventually, like in the '60s, they started to do the rating system, which all the major studios approved of. And basically, it means that all a film would be voluntarily posted for a rating. So, for example, let's just say I made a new film. I don't know, the Blockbuster Beach Bum Goes Nuts, and I submit it for a rating through the Motion Picture Association of America. They give me a rating, and I can either accept that rating, not accept it and challenge it, not accept it, re-edit it, and resubmit it to them, or I can go make it keep it unrated and get no marketing. Now, according to Jack Valenti, who really helped with the Motion Picture Association of America and is deceased, Jack Valenti said that a rating should not take away from a good movie. If there's a good movie, a good product out there, people are going to go see it no matter what the rating is. A rating can't hurt you. That's a very naive statement. Very naive. A rating can certainly hurt a movie, but that's at a subjective level. Now, it might not hurt. Sometimes it'll hurt in terms of box office. For example, I'm not saying all rated R movies are flops. Let's face it, the Hangover movies, Passion of the Christ, The Matrix stuff, those movies are successful. But not every rated R movie is successful. And sometimes a rated R movie will flop really hard because, sometimes it might be a film that, would connect to a teenage audience, but because it's a rated R movie, they can't see it without the permission of their parents, and that's never going to happen because the movie might have some inappropriate content. Toy Story 3. Great movie in my opinion. And one of the best scenes in the movie is basically where you have the kid. Now the toys are all, they all think they're about to die, and they all hold hands. Now, this, excuse me, this might seem like it's a pretty, not disturbing, but a scene that's very heartfelt, very emotional. Something, if I was a little kid, I don't know if I could handle something like that. And there was instances, I remember Confused Matthew was talking about this. He's an internet reviewer, and he was talking about how someone in his audience, there was a little kid asked their parent, why are they holding their hands? And he makes the comment, I would hate to be the parent that would have to explain that to their kids. Now, when you look at a G rating, there's nothing to be said about it. It just says G, general audiences, nothing offensive. But what if I was a parent, looking at that, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not true, because you have a scene in the movie where the toys almost die. They almost die in this film. And you're telling me that there's nothing offensive, there's nothing disturbing, there's nothing that would, I'm not trying to say, oh, we need to care about the children, but, I think the rating system needs to take a little more responsibility in these things and actually evaluate it. Now, there are claims that the people who do rate the movies are parents. Trouble with that is that sometimes a movie might be rated too harshly, and other times, maybe it's not really rated that hard at all. Like, with Toy Story 3, I think it was rated G, partly because it's a Disney movie. Why not? Lone Ranger is another Disney movie. There's a scene of cannibalism. They threw a piece of a rabbit to a bunch of rabbits, and the rabbits all fight for it. I mean, I'm reading comments on the internet saying parents took their kids out of the theater because of that scene, and they're never trusting a Disney film again. I mean, obviously you can only take that with a grain of salt. But the fact that a Disney scene would contain a scene of cannibalism, and yet people will see this movie, even though the movie's not doing very well, but regardless, there are people who are going to see this movie thinking it's a Disney film, it'll be okay for my kid. And also, they try to make the statement, oh, the average American parent. Now, there is no such thing as the average American parent, I mean, like, I know parents are divorced, parents who might be separated but they're not divorced. My mother's a single parent, she's a widow. That's not the average American parent. So what the hell is the average American parent? It's an issue of subjectivity. I mean, the average American family, quite frankly, I don't think it really exists. It's kind of like something we try to reach for, but it just doesn't exist. And that's the problem with the rating system. They try to go for that, but that doesn't work all the time. Now, I also want to talk about the most hated rating on the planet. PG-13. Now, back in the day, you had G, PG, and R, and maybe X, and all that other stuff. But let's just concentrate on PG and R for a minute. That seems like a pretty extreme, range. Like you go from PG, which it might be okay for your kid to see, to R, which is like, holy shit, look what's happening on screen. Pardon my French. So you need something in the middle. Now, film, famously, Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Film is rated PG. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, this movie's very, very childish, but at the same time, there's a lot of very graphic and disturbing scenes that almost could have qualified it for an R, and parents were in an uproar about the film. However, Spielberg suggested, why don't you guys create a PG-14 or PG-13? And I'm not saying that was the cause, but it was sort of helped influence the fact that there should be a rating between PG and R, because even when you look at just PG and R, that's a very high range of stuff that you're talking about here, just going from one extreme to the other. Then PG-13. Now, I don't mind PG-13 as much as other people do. People who probably criticize PG-13, people who like horror films. Now, a horror director has a very hard time because there are successful R-rated horror movies, but at the same time, they want the teenagers to be able to see these horror movies, so they'll try to lessen the intensity. They'll self-censor it, so that way it'll get a PG-13 rating. Or in the case of The Hunger Games. I read the book. The book's okay, and the movie's pretty good too, but When you think about the concept of children killing each other, it's a very graphic concept that I've also seen in Battle Royale, which is a much more graphic film. And there's a lot of shaky cam, a lot of quick edits and cuts. And that's how the film was PG-13. It probably could have been an R, but it got to be PG-13 because of the way it was shot and the way it was edited. And people really get pissed off about that. And I don't mind it as much because I get it. I get why these things have to happen. But some people are like, no, you don't. Also, the Batman movies. The Christopher Nolan Batman movies use the shaky cam and use the quick edits and the cuts and all that sort of stuff, so that way they can get a PG-13 rating. Otherwise, those movies probably could be R, justifiably. However, they are PG-13. So, and then there's some people who try to make it, who want to make their film a higher rating because they'll know it'll attract a crowd. Like, for example, back in the day when they had X as a rating, or X still might be, I don't know. X is, people put X in front of their films just to, that way they can get a crowd, that way they can make a profit, which I think is an interesting concept. Again, just voluntarily accepting that rating, even though there's nothing really exceptional about the content. You just want the people to show up at the movie. Trying to think what else. Oh yeah, and the main problem with the rating system, you're probably saying to me, why isn't this illegal? The answer is no, it's not. It's actually not illegal. If this was enforced by the government, then all this happening would be illegal. But the fact of the matter is that you can't rule it unconstitutional because the movie studios approve. Now, I'm a big movie studio like Disney, and then another one of my friends is Warner Brothers, Fox, Sony, Universal, Paramount. All these big studios, they support the rating system because they'll know they'll get a better rating, or at least the best rating that will help them promote the movie. And then in the case of independents, they're literally just shit out of luck because they have to fend for it on their own, and then sometimes the ratings can be changed on those independent films. That way they won't get as much of a crowd. That way they'll support, the bigger studios are, aided in that crusade. Now, there are certain people who are just like, oh, why, rating, they hate the people criticizing the rating system. It's just, it's a very hard issue to discuss because you have people who are like, we don't need to show our children offensive content. And I get that, but then you're allowing all this violence to happen. There's so many issues to this. Then the violence is another thing. In a PG-13 movie, violence is almost like a cartoon. Like, people shoot each other and they're dead. Little to no blood. And then in something like Saving Private Ryan, there's much more graphic and all that sort of stuff, and that's rated R. And some people brought the interesting point: you should make the films that are like cartoony that are PG-13 rated R, and the ones that are R that are gruesome, like Saving Private Ryan, PG-13, because you need younger audience to understand the ratings and the consequences. Whereas an adult could probably mentally handle something like, all the cartoony violence that happens, which that's debatable too. And violence in the media is one of those battles I don't feel like fighting. There's no hard evidence to it, and in some cases violence prevents people from violence in the media prevents them from committing violence in real life. For instance, people blame the Dark Knight for the shoot up in the movie theater. So what you're trying to tell me is that all the people that went to see The Dark Knight Rises are going to come out as serial killers. That's a totally preposterous idea, So it amazes, obviously there's not much you can do to prove your point because how the media affects you is a very subjective, I keep using subjective, but that's like the main word of today. It's very subjective, It's very difficult to determine. But I also have to put a little blame on the parents. Parents need to take more responsibility of their children. I don't know how parents do it. Sometimes just look at a trailer and say nope, which sometimes that's a good thing. You know, look at a trailer and it's like, you know what? I think I'm looking at this. My kid can't handle something like this. I think other parents though need to go and do their research. For example, at IMDB, there's a really helpful section about about parental guidance, and they break down every element, every offensive thing you could possibly find in the movie, like smoking, drugs, language, violence, disturbing sequences, things like that. And it breaks it down and tells you, you know, what scenes are in what, and you know, all that sort of stuff. And I think something like that is much more helpful than saying, oh, this film is G or PG, you know, sci-fi violence and a disturbing image. What the heck does that mean? You know? And then sometimes, you know, obviously it's very subjective. Now, things that I don't agree with. I looked up The Incredibles, and The Incredibles, spoiler alert, there's a suicide joke in The Incredibles, where basically Mr. Incredible tries to save a guy who falls off the building, but actually the guy was trying to kill himself and sues Mr. Incredible for interrupting the suicide. And I watched that scene, and I'm like, no, that's not Pixar trying to, you know, appeal to everybody. That's just a really stupid, really poorly conceived joke. Like, that's not the Pixar movie's not the place to do a suicide joke, and yet nowhere in the PG rating is set forth by the MPAA do you see a disturbing image or anything like that. Like The Artist. Spoiler, The Artist, there's a suicide attempt in the movie, and that's the quote-unquote disturbing image. Now, I don't mind that. If you mention it in the rating, like PG-13 for a crude gesture and a disturbing scene, fine, done. That's okay. But if you're going to have a movie that's advertised for families and children and have a suicide joke and not even mention a disturbing image in the ratings box, then I don't know. That's a bit irresponsible. But again, parents should look up these things. So parents, if you can hear me, if any of you are parents out there, how do you determine if a movie is safe for your child? Or if you're a guardian or someone who's taking other people's kids to the movies, how do you determine if a movie is safe for them? If you're someone who's not a parent and, you know, just goes to the movies, what do you think of the rating system and how it affects your movie-going experience? And that's it. I'm gonna have links to the IMDb, like I'm gonna have links to IMDb and stuff like that, and get yourself a flyer. I think these are at a lot of movie theaters, so check it out, and I hope this video was informative. I know it went a little longer than I wanted to. It's a little unscripted as well, but I just wanted to address the issues with the rating system and address some topics that, you know, could present some good discussion points. See you guys later.